everybody. Mike Beer here with your race of the day for Wednesday, December 7th. The race of the day is the final race, race number 9 at Gulfstream Park on Wednesday. It's a maiden race for either Florida-bred fillies and mares, or you can enter for the optional $40,000 tag. These are 3-year-olds and up. They're going to go 1 mile on the turf course. The purse is $50,000. Let's take a look at the field right now. 10 horses have entered here. Scan the QR code on your screen right now, and you can get free access on your mobile device for this race of the day. I thought a pretty well-matched field of 10 overall. The morning line favorite is number 4. 5-2 is the price on Big B, who will be facing maiden claiming competition here for the first time after 5 starts. A couple of those on turf to begin her career, where she actually ran pretty well. That's been when Bill Mott had her as a 3-year-old. She's come back off of a long layoff with 3 starts this year. I guess you could say her form's certainly held up. The last 2 starts have been on the all-weather surface since she switched to the David Fawkes barn, and she's run fine in those races. Not that hard to make a case for. Certainly kind of feels like she's in the right kind of spot. Has plenty of tactical speed to get the right kind of trip in here with Paco Lopez taking over. Just a horse who's pretty easy to make a case for in this race. The 2 Florida-bred horses, the only 2 in the field who are not entered for the $40,000 tag, are the number 3 Laveau, who is first-time turf, first-time stretching out for trainer Joe Orsino. She's 3-1 on the morning line, which seems a little bit light, but we'll see. It does feel like she does have a little bit of ability. The other Florida-bred is the longest shot there on the board on the morning line, the number 9 Delta Red. Another horse stretching out for the first time, switching to turf for the first time. She's only run once in her career so far, did not run well in that race. She's a big price on the line. So we'll see. Everything else, though, is in for the 40. Feels like the kind of race where there's not a true standout. Trips will probably be very important here. Along those lines, let's take a look at the time. U.S. Pace Projector. They have the number 1 Ramadan out on the early lead. That is certainly possible, let's just say. Ramadan is a horse who she's been over here stateside for her last 6 starts. She began her career in England. Hasn't really shown tons of speed in any of those races. 3 starts back in a race that was rained off the turf. That's the first time she went long in a race. She was part of the pace that day, but that pace wasn't particularly fast. In her 3 turf starts, she really hasn't been that close to the lead. But 2 of those were sprints. The most recent one, when she was stretched out on turf for the first time, she was sort of up close to the pace, and they're doing some chasing. She has the rail here, blinkers are going on, dropping in class. All those things could sort of conspire to make her show more speed in this race. So that, wouldn't be that surprising. You do have the 2 stretch outs that we mentioned earlier there, the 2 Florida breds. Laveau, is stretching out, as is Delta Red. So maybe one of those will show speed. I thought the 5 Spirit of Power could show speed in here, as she did 2 and 3 starts back. They tried it a different way last time and rated her back off the pace, but she could certainly go forward this time after that trip sort of didn't work out last time. Inez's Hats, the 7, could show some speed. Even the 10 Downburst, who picks up Luis Saez for this, that horse could show some speed. So we'll see. I didn't necessarily feel like the one, just had to be in control of this pace early. I think a lot of different horses could sort of cloud that up a little bit. Let's start off with Ramadan, though, as far as the handicapping goes. Again, not that, I don't think she's that hard to make a case for in here. First time in for the tag here against maiden claimers. The last start at Indiana, where she was in against a maiden special weight field, she got relatively close to the pace that day. Personally, I thought overall her trip was a good one, but she did a lot of chasing in there. She was in contention as that field came into the stretch, and ultimately, she just wasn't good enough, and that's why you get a class drop with a horse like this. She needs it. She probably fits a lot better against a field like this one, and she's a very fair price on the morning line. I didn't particularly love her in this race, but I'm not going to argue with anyone who does. This is the right kind of race to be running Ramadan in. The number 2 is Reaching Stride, 6-1 on the line. This is going to be her turf debut. She is a 3-year-old filly who's already run below this claiming level a couple of times on the all-weather surface and came up short in those races. They ran her in this exact condition 2 starts back on October 14th. That was also on the all-weather surface. We'll look at the replay of the stretch run of that race right now, because Reaching Stride is going to finish 2nd. Spirit of Power, who's back in this race, will finish 3rd. Inez's Hatch will finish 4th. They're all coming back in this race, switching to the grass. Reaching Stride does get up for 2nd here. Really good trip in this race, sort of sitting in behind the lead for a long way here. came to challenge and take over ahead of the eventual winner here in the stretch. And she's pretty game down to the end. She just can't quite shake away here at the end, and she's going to get run down, and she's going to settle for second best. That was Spirit of Power. You saw sort of rallying down the outside there, gaining ground at the end to get up for third. I thought she ran well in that race as well. This horse, Reaching Stride, she ran fine in there. Her prior 2 starts, which came against weaker competition, were sort of similar performances, races where she got good trips, had a shot at it, and came up short at the end. I don't like those things about her. There's a little bit of turf pedigree here to make the surface switch. So I won't worry too much about her switching surfaces here. I just sort of questioned not only how good she was, but just how much more improvement she has in her. I think that would be the real key for me. I didn't think she was a great price on the morning line. If I was going to take somebody out of that the October 14th race that we just watched, I would take Spirit of Power. The number 3 is Laveau. Only sprinted so far all of those races either on the all-weather or the dirt. She's never run on turf, never been beyond 5.5 furlongs. So we'll see. She's going to stretch out here and switch surfaces for the first time. But it's the kind of pedigree that's very versatile. I don't think you have to worry about her switching to turf. There's actually, if you go back a couple of generations, there's a lot of turf in this pedigree. Some really good horses too. So I think on the dam side, she's bred for grass. Cajun Breeze, her sire, not exactly a really strong turf influence, so that's a little bit of a problem. To me, more than anything else, I think she's run fine in her 4 starts sprinting. I really liked actually her most recent start, the dirt race on November 13th, where she got herself pretty far back early and made a nice run through the stretch of that race to gain ground. She never changed leads in there, but I thought she ran pretty well in there to be second best. And I do think she has enough turf pedigree that I could be interested, but not at the 3-1 morning line. I just don't think that's the right kind of price. I do think she's a little interested in here, but if I was going to bet her, I would never take 3-1 on her. She's not my kind of horse at that kind of a price. If she drifts, I'll try to keep an open mind about her, but I don't want her at that kind of a price. The 4 is Big B, morning line favorite. Easy to make a case for in here. Again, ran fine in her first 2 starts last year. Missed a lot of time after that. And I guess you could just say that she's come back this year and sort of held her form anyway. The race at Belmont, the only turf start this year, was off of a really long lap. I think you want to be a little forgiving of that performance, and she's run fine in her last 2 starts. I can't say that I love those performances, but she ran fine. Back to turf here could be a good thing. Certainly dropping in for the maiden 40 is a good thing for her. So we'll see. David Fox feels like he's got her at least in good form right now, and he's switching her back to the turf here. She's not hard to make a case for. I think she can easily win this race. I felt like it was maybe a race that sort of went beyond her as the favorite, and maybe there were some more interesting horses from a wagering perspective, but just from a straight up handicapping perspective, she's probably the horse that you want to consider first and decide what you want to do with her. I kind of wanted to try to bet against her, but won't be surprised when she wins. The 5 is Spirit of Power. First time turf for this filly. Again, she was in that October 14th replay that we watched earlier where Reaching Stride finished second. I thought this horse ran pretty well in there. It was a sort of a change in tactics for her early. They took her back off the pace right from the start, and she was back to last early, sitting on the rail. And then she just sort of got herself, before we picked up that replay, caught behind horses around that final turn and couldn't really improve her position. Then you saw the run that she put in through the stretch once they got her out into the clear, and she made up a lot of ground. I don't want to say that she was unlucky not to win there, but boy, it felt like she could have been a lot closer. So even though she lost as the favorite in that race, I actually felt like she ran okay. Her starts 2 and 3 back weren't great, but they were she was more forwardly placed in those. And so it gives you the hope that if they wanted to, maybe they could just get her a little bit of a better trip in here. The blinkers are also going on, which might suggest that they want to be more forward again this time. She was unlucky last time. Not a huge turf pedigree for her, but it's certainly not a huge negative turf pedigree either. I'm going to keep an open mind about Spirit of Power. I'd like to use her somewhere in this race. The 6 is Rich Gift, dropping in for Jimmy Toner, very lightly raced. Only 2 starts so far. She didn't run particularly well in either of them. I have, if I wanted to, I could make excuses for both of them. The Colonial race, her debut back on August in a big field at Colonial. She was the only first-time starter in that field. And they just went a really fast pace. The field got all stretched out in there. This filly making her debut just had to work really, really hard just to try to keep up. And she got really tired through the stretch and just dropped way back in there. I think that was a tough situation for her to be in, though, to land in a race that's that strongly run as the only first-time starter. I'm going to try not to be too hard on her for that performance. Then Toner gave her a little time off and brought her back going 5.5. at Laurel, and she does not have a real sprinter's pedigree, to be sure. Her second dam, Volga, was a major Grade 1, 2, and 3 winner on the turf. She made over $1 million, all of it going long. It's just the kind of pedigree where it doesn't feel like she would be, particularly well suited to sprinting. So I just wonder if Toner was using that as a prep off of a little bit of a layoff to then stretch her back out, which he does here. I think it's, really fair to question if she can run at all. But I can make excuses for those first 2 starts, and she's 20-1 on the morning line against this field. I don't know, man. If that morning line's close to right, I would try to stay positive on Rich Gift, and just give her one more chance to show what she can do. And again, maybe she just can't run at all, but I'd be willing to give her one more. And Nez's Hats is the 7. She's already run 15 times, only hit the board once, and was in another one in that October 14th race we watched where she was on the lead and just wasn't good enough when they came to the stretch. I thought she was hard to make a case for in here. Martini's Amica is the 9. 0 for 16, only hit the board once in her career, but this is one of the horses in here who, despite that lackluster record, I would try to stay positive on her at a price in this race. Only 5 starts on turf, and only one of them down around this level. She ran for maiden 40 back in May at Belmont Park, going a mile and a 16th. We'll look at the stretch run of that race right now, because you're going to see Martinez Amica. She's the number 1 in this race. She's in contention here down to mid-stretch, when she's going to wind up getting sort of in tight between horses and squeezed back out of contention, just basically losing all chance. Certainly felt like she was going to be a lot closer at the end of that race had she been able to, get a clear path there and keep going. After that race, they brought her back up in class, and she was just, I don't know what Jose Ortiz was doing that day at a big price, but he just rated her back to last and didn't look like he ever asked her to do anything. I don't know what was going on there. After a little bit of a layoff, they came back at Delaware at the end of August. She finished a pretty good 4th in a maiden special weight race that day with a 68 buyer. And since then, it's been either dirt or the all-weather surface. Back on turf, on the drop in this race, 20-1 on the morning line. I can't say that I love her, but I'll be using her at that kind of a price, because I don't think she's impossible. And here, Delta Red, the other Florida bred in this field, she debuted in that same race. She made a very late debut, by the way, November 13th of her 4-year-old season. She's about to turn 5, only 1 start. She was in that Laveau race. Laveau ran pretty well in there. Delta Red didn't. She's going to be a huge price in here for lower percentage connections. The number 10 Downburst hasn't run on turf since the middle of May here at Gulfstream Park in a maiden 35, and actually had speed in that race, was right up there in contention through the stretch, settled for 3rd behind Inez's Hats, which I don't love, but it's not like that was a disastrous performance. 3 starts since then, all on the all-weather, and she's, if nothing else, held her form in those races. I think she's a contender in here. The only things I didn't love about her were that you're going to get a high percentage trainer and Luis Saez taking the mount here, and I just feel like that might pull too much money in her direction. She's just not the kind of horse I would want, a short price on. But I do think she's a contender in this race, even from post 10. I thought it was a relatively interesting race. I wanted to try to avoid the shorter prices in this Wednesday race of the day, and so we'll put the picks up there now. That just sort of led me to look for the alternatives, and the one horse who I kept coming back to, I just feel like I can give this horse one more chance, is the 6, Rich Gift. I don't know if she's any good. I think there's a real chance that she's just not that good. But if she can run it all, and I don't think she's got a fair chance to show what she could truly do in those first 2 starts, this is the right spot to try her. And Toner does a good job. He knows where to place his horses, and I think he's found a good spot for this horse too. Will I get the 20-1 morning line? I don't know, but even at half that price, I could take a little shot with Rich Gift in here. I just think she's interesting enough in a race where I think you want alternatives to the favorites. I went 6, 5, 3, and 8 in the Wednesday race of the day. Plenty of different ways to go. Don't forget about the race of the day here on Wednesday. It's the final race at Gulfstream Park, race number 9 on Wednesday, approximate post time, 4:05 Eastern time. Good luck.